Good evening, John.
Tim?
So, tell us a bit about yourself.
Uh, Very varied career. Music, teaching, business, family, business, all sorts of odds and ends. I think I'm one of these people who likes to have a great variety in life. So rather than become the very best or the very top man in any sort of area of life at all, really, I like to sample lots of different things.
S-
Probably what brought me to Moscow in the first place.
So, when did you come to Moscow?
I don't remember the exact date, but it's coming up to 14 years ago now. So we're 2002, 2003. Um, I've actually lived in Moscow for longer than I have lived in one place in the whole of my life since I left home at the age of 16. Um, so it must be something right about the place.
What other places have you lived?
Travelled around Britain quite a lot. Again, as I said, I'm one of these people who likes to sample different things. So I would rarely spend more than 2 or 3 years in one city or county. I've also worked abroad in a variety of places. I did, for instance, a short time in America teaching. Um, when I was with the oil company, I used to be their troubleshooter, and they would send me all over the world. That's a little bit of an incorrect thing, an incorrect statement, perhaps I should say, because of course when you're doing something like that, you're there for 2 days at the most. You see a hotel, you see an office, you might see an oil rig or a petrol station, um, and hotels, oil rigs, and offices. They're pretty much the same, whatever country you're in.
Yeah,
So
probably.
I can't really say I saw the countries very much. Travelled a lot when I was younger. I used to be very keen on mountaineering, so I did a lot of travels about Europe to various mountain ranges. And on one occasion, a group of us did an expedition to Afghanistan, which I have to stress was a lot safer place to visit in those days than it is now. Um, that was quite an experience because
That
we did
was
it on
after the 1970s.
I was 20 years old, so it would have been 1966, 1967.
Okay.
Um, that was an experience because we had very little money, so we had to travel in the cheapest possible ways. That included travelling halfway across India by train, where we literally spent 3 or 4 days in what was effectively a cattle truck with people sitting on the roof, and it was fun actually. I'm not so sure at my age now I'd like to repeat it.
What were the reasons that brought you to Moscow?
Again, very varied. Um, I'd gone back to teaching after some time in business, and I had a heart attack. Um, it wasn't a serious one, but it was enough so that I had to stop serious, heavy work. They suggested I take a holiday to recuperate from the procedures, medical procedures that is. I came over here, liked it, went back home and settled my affairs, came back here, and I've been here ever since. It wasn't planned, it just sort of happened. Uh, Moscow's a curious place, particularly if like me, you're an expat. And of course, I'm not like most expats in Russia. Most of them are here for 2 or 3 years, working for a company at a high salary, and then they go back home. Um, I am home. Moscow is my home these days. Um, I'm a little bit different from the ordinary Moscowite, of course, because I'm not Russian. And being very typically British, I virtually no knowledge, even after 13 years, of the Russian language. I'm appallingly bad at it.
But there should be some words you can speak.
Hello, goodbye, um, thank you, please. That's about it, basically. I like to pretend that this is the fault of Russian people. I don't think most Russian people living in Moscow quite realise the city they are living in. Now, this isn't surprising. I don't think anybody realises totally the place they are living in. Because for them, it's normal. It's everyday. Things that would look unusual to somebody else, they just walk past because it's part of their everyday life. One of the things about Moscow people, possibly Russian people, I don't know because it's a big country and I've not seen it all, is that they're an incredibly linguistic people. It's almost impossible to find somebody in Moscow who doesn't speak, at least on a simple level, and often on a very sophisticated level, at least one other language. This means that there's not a great deal of incentive to learn Russian because you don't need to. I have this theory that if I get lost in Moscow, the way to deal with it is to simply stand on the corner and ask each pretty girl as she comes past where I am and can she help me. Sooner or later, usually sooner, one of them will speak English. And the immediate question you're going to ask is, why ask pretty girls, not everybody? That's very simple. It's much nicer to speak to pretty girls than it is to anybody else, particularly when you're my age.
Yeah, probably.
But that's the significant thing about Moscow that strikes most expats, I think, straight away. There's pretty girls in every city, but I do not know of another place where the ladies are so attentive to their appearance and detail. You have probably no more pretty girls in this country than any other, but my word, do they not know how to show themselves to advantage. It's impressive.
Is there more?
Oh, an awful lot. When I first came here, it was in the summer. And of course, all the girls were wearing their pretty summer dresses and their sun hats, and it was really quite a beautiful sight. I went home, as I said, with the intention of settling my fares, and when I came back, it was the winter. And I was quite worried because I thought all these pretty girls in their cotton dresses, and I thought they'll be covered up and look like gigantic woolen footballs in the Russian winter. I should have known better. Yes, they were wearing warmer clothes, of course, but with such style and grace. And of course, the eternal problem to the expat. Again, I suspect Russian men don't think about it because it's normal to them. But only in Moscow would you find a girl with a thick coat with a warm collar, beautifully made up, peeking out of the hood, who's wearing those ridiculous knee-high, high-heeled boots. I can understand why boots, snow and ice, but why a high-heeled boot in snow and ice? It's got to be the most impractical thing to wear for the weather. The astonishing thing is, they look good in it and they move good in it. I have this theory that in Russian schools, at some stage or another, all the girls are taken to a separate classroom from the boys and taught how to walk in high heels in snow and ice. I'm quite sure the Russian men know absolutely nothing about it, and it's a great secret of Russian ladies. It's spectacular.
Okay, so probably we will have more topics to discuss.
Oh my goodness, yes. There are so many things, so many wonderful things about this city, which I suspect the average native of the city doesn't notice, just because they're not used to it. It's normal, so they don't see it. But I see it, and I love it all.
And so we will return with conversations with John Fraser soon again.
Looking forward to it. Thanks.